Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. I've got a vintage German-made Chelsea 3 alarm clock here, turned up in a box from a shed. It's I'm guessing it's 1950s era, but I once read that anything after World War II would actually say made in West Germany rather than just Germany. So maybe my German friends can help me out there if that's right or not. It looks more 50s to me, but maybe it's pre-war, maybe it's the late 30s. Anyway, the problem is it doesn't work, and I just thought I'd take you through a few steps and we'll see if we can sort it out. Now what happens, it's complete, it's undamaged, other than the very sort of brownish face, but that kind of looks nice. It's kind of that rustic look. So when I go to wind it up, it winds, it sounds good, but it keeps winding, and it just doesn't get any tighter. So clearly we're not tensioning up the mainspring. Something's let go, whether it's a broken spring or whether something else has happened, I'm not sure. The alarm side works. That winds up and it gets tighter. And if we let it go, it's a terrible sounding alarm clock, but it does work. Anyway, the only thing wrong with it is the mainspring. At least as far as I can tell at this stage. So let's pull it apart and see what we can find. Now getting into clocks varies a little bit, but nearly all of them with winders, if you move the winder the opposite direction to how you would wind it up, they nearly all unscrew. There we go. So we obviously have to take those out first. Sometimes you need to take these, the time adjust and the alarm adjust off. They sometimes just pull off, like these ones, just a press fit. Other times they're threaded, and that one's very tight. Perhaps that one's threaded. Look at that, one's threaded, one isn't. So you do need to be a bit careful. Don't just get the pliers on one because the other one pulled off. Nothing else on the back. Sometimes there's screws. This one has a handle at the top and 2 feet. Now, I would assume the feet are actually screws. There we go. And the other one, luckily they're not too tight. And there we go. Well, the back cover would have come off anyway, but the screws obviously held the movement part in. Okay, so we'll see what's going on with this mainspring. Alright, it looks a bit grotty in there. The spring here is fully unwound, so I would assume it's broken. We'll just try winding it, and we'll have to put the winder back on to do that. Okay, it doesn't appear to be moving the spring at all, so I'd say the end of it's broken off. So we'll take the actual movement out of the case and just see how difficult it's going to be to get that spring assembly off. The rest of it looks okay, other than just being a bit dirty. There's a balance wheel up the top, which is the bit that rocks back and forward. The hairspring looks okay. And it looks like that's going to go fine once we get some spring pressure on it. So we'll pull the movement out now. We'll have a better look at the mainspring and see if we can repair it. So just having a better look at this, the feet for the clock do go through into the bottom plate. So the movement is attached to a plate that sits behind the face. And there's also a threaded piece here, which is the alarm stop button. And it's got a small pin through it. Not sure if you can see that, but we'll have to take that pin out. It's been bent over on one side. And once we get that out, we'll be able to unscrew the button. Oops, that scared me. I'll see if I can do this on camera. You probably can't see from the shadows. I'm just going to straighten that pin, which has been bent over, and hopefully it slides out this side. I just got that little pin out. It was pretty tricky to get out, but I got it out, which means that the stop button now can pull right out, and it's actually the collar underneath we've got to remove, and a normal screwdriver should do that. So now I don't think there's anything else holding it. There we go. And it gives us access to the hands, the face. Good chance to clean the glass while I got it apart, but we need to see if we can get it fixed first. Now, of course, the hands don't have any protection either now, and they're usually just a paper. Yeah, it's like a thin cardboard face. And also you'll notice on these hands, they have that greenish paint and the dots, and they're actually luminous. And I think if I remember rightly, it's radium or something, which actually is radioactive. And I remember reading about the girls that used to paint these on with little paintbrushes, and a lot of them died from radiation poisoning. So you certainly don't want to play around with that too much. And I did have the lights off the other day and saw that this one still glowed. So we won't touch that as much as as little as we need to. And we've got to get into the back now. So as near as I can tell on this movement, these supports are riveted at the bottom, which means I can't access them. I took the nut off the top on each corner, thinking that the whole thing might slide off, but the top plate's now loose. So I'm going to have to basically pull the whole thing apart, and I think we would have had to anyway. We wouldn't be able to replace or repair the mainspring without actually separating it. So we're going to have cogs and sprockets and things everywhere for a little while. I'll take a couple of photos, we'll take them all out, give them a bit of a clean up, and we'll have a look at that spring to see if we can do anything with it. Now, it is important to make sure that both springs have been totally unwound or let down before you start pulling things off. Otherwise there's going to be tension on some of the cogs and the springs will flick out and you'll have parts go everywhere. So I've got this ready to pull apart, and it should just basically, the top plate should come off and the cogs and sprockets are basically going to fall everywhere. But we have the technology these days to take photos before we do jobs like this. And look, the clock wasn't working anyway, so my advice is have a go. Don't be daunted by a whole heap of parts and you don't know where they go. Generally you can work it out. Usually there's only one place they can go. So I'm taking all these out. I'll just put them in a tub for now. We'll give them a good wash up. Now that was the alarm spring, and that one looks good. We will inspect the other spring soon. But yeah, don't be daunted by it. Have a go. If worse comes to worse and you can't put it back together, what have you lost? It doesn't really matter. The clock wasn't working anyway. And if you do have success, it's extremely satisfying and you learn something. And even if it doesn't work, you still learn something. So just pulling all these out. And it's a great chance to clean up all the little arbor holes. Oh, that one goes through. Oh, that's the little second hand there, so we'll leave that one there. That's the main hour hand, I think. So here's the main spring, and yes, look at that. That's the remainder of the spring on there. So it's broken. It hasn't just broken the end either, it's broken a little way in, so I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. We'll get it out first and have a look. But yeah, like I was saying, it's good experience to try these jobs. You never learn anything unless you have a go. Alright, and the oil there is quite old and gummy, and I mention that on a lot of clock videos I do. The main reason clocks stop running, other than a breakage like this one, is that the old oil just gums things up. So we don't need to take that apart any further. So I'm back to this clock repair job, guys. It's been some time. In fact, it's been about 6 weeks since you last saw this. Well, since I last did this, it's only been a few seconds since you last saw it. I have rounded up another spring, and our main spring here had broken the center piece. So if it had have just broken the very end, I might have tried to refashion it, put a new hook on it, but it broke those few coils, and so that spring's no longer usable. So I managed to find one secondhand on eBay, and all I did was just search for clock mainspring, and just the width was the critical thing, and they do need to have the same loops, how they mount. It's got to loop that end, and the center part, which I've already pushed onto the shaft there, just has a little notch And I don't know if we can see on this one, but there's a little hole just inside that lines up with a notch. So you can find these springs if you search eBay. There's always someone selling parts. The alarm spring's fine. We'll have to fit that back onto the arbor there. And then we've got all these little cogs and sprockets to refit back into the movement. Luckily I took a heap of photos, so I'll study them carefully. I'll lube the mainspring just lightly, and then I'll assemble it all the rest of it I'll assemble dry, and then we can put just a little dot of oil on each little pivot point once it's assembled, and that's all. You don't want to over oil these things. So a bit of patience, and study all the photos you took, and treat it as a puzzle. They're always fun to put back together, and if you get stuck and you find it a bit overwhelming, just leave it for today, come back tomorrow and have a look at the photos again. Just work one piece at a time, and very, very satisfying once you get these things back together and they run. And back in the shed tonight, we've had some success. The old girl Chelsea is ticking away again. The bottom dial there is the second hand, as you can see, that's moving around. It went together very well. Look, I won't lie, it was rather fiddly, particularly getting the springs in the right position. I studied all the photos carefully. I found the easiest way was to start from one side, and as you get the gears in one side, just do the little nut up, put the plate over, do the nut up finger tight, just on the one corner, and then you can gradually, with a pair of tweezers, work all the other cogs in. As you get the other side gears in, just put that nut on, do it up finger tight. You don't want to do it up any tighter than just gently, because you're going to put pressure on the cogs and gears that aren't in the right spot. And the last thing I put in under there was a little balance wheel. You can see that ticking away, because they have got an adjustable bearing, so that went in last, so there was no danger of hurting the hairspring. So it went in really well. I'm really pleased with that. I've got my little frame here, my little alien man holding it up, and we'll just leave it run overnight and make sure that the time's fairly accurate. It will be adjustable on the hairspring, but I'll just make sure it runs overnight before I reassemble it. So these jobs, you do need an arrangement of tweezers and little pliers and things. You know, the right tools does make a job easier. Trying to put these little sprockets and cogs in with your fingers is very fiddly and not accurate, so tweezers are a must. So there you go, another job complete. I'll quickly show you when it's back together. We'll give the glass a clean up, and then we can put it in the shop. Now, labour wise, yeah, I've spent more time on this, and I think I paid about $8 plus about $8 postage on the mainspring. We're only probably going to get about $50 for the alarm clock, but it's not about the money, it's about satisfaction of fixing something. We've saved it from going to landfill. Sure, look, someone might have bought it for $5 as a clock that doesn't go, but yeah, I love bringing things back to life. So it's all been lubed. It should run for a long time now, and it appears to be in pretty good condition. I didn't notice any gears or cogs that were badly worn, so look, it might see another 50 years if people want to use this old-fashioned style alarm clock that has a terrible alarm. But anyway, we'll see how it goes when we get it all back together. All together now, it's running beautifully. You can see it's still ticking around. The glass cleaned up magnificently. It looks a lot better with clean glass. I also took a couple of little rusty patches off the case, and it rubbed it just a little bit back to the white underneath, which kind of looks nice, I think. It's an authentic vintage look. So there we go, she runs beautifully, and the alarm is set for 9 o'clock. If I just wind the main hands forward a bit. There we go. Did that wake you up? What a terrible noise. Anyway, I think most of us hate alarms anyway. So there we go, job's finished. Very happy, great little repair job. And I hope I'm encouraging you to have a go at fixing things. It's certainly not about the money, it's about saving things. It's about keeping our circular economy going. And isn't it great when you can have a vintage item like this that'll have a second life? Alright, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.